This happened a few weeks ago. I was 32 and had just moved to a new city. I settled into my small apartment in an old building that creaked with every step. I thought I would find inspiration from my window. The view was a narrow alley full of garbage bins. I always loved the sound of rain, but soon it became an eerie soundtrack to my nights. I was working late one night when I first heard it, a soft thudding from above. At first I thought it was just the old plumbing acting up. I shrugged it off and tried to focus on my designs, but the noise kept tapping at my mind. It felt unsettling, like someone was watching me. Around midnight, the thudding changed. It turned into a rhythm I couldn't understand. My heart raced as I strained to listen. Maybe I was just imagining things? The next day, I tried to forget it. I told myself the sounds were just the building settling. But each night, as rain drummed against my window, the thuds returned. This time, I thought I heard muffled voices. I could almost make out words, but they slipped away as soon as I tried to focus. My gut twisted with unease. Then shadows appeared on my ceiling. They flickered and moved quickly. I felt a tightness in my chest. What was going on up there? I wanted to call someone, but who? I didn't know my neighbors' names. The shadows grew bolder, darting back and forth. I wanted to understand. Maybe I was just overthinking things, but the feeling of wrongness only grew deeper. That night, I crept across my living room, my heart pounding. I knocked on the ceiling with a broom handle. Silence followed. Maybe it was nothing. A few nights later, I decided it was time to confront it. The creaky stairs led me up to the door above my apartment. I stood there, my heart racing. Rain pounded against the building, the wind howling. I wanted to shout, to ask if someone was okay, but I felt frozen. When I finally turned to leave, a low voice whispered. I almost didn't hear it. Help us. My heart skipped a beat. I rushed down the stairs, but laughter, soft and chilling, seemed to follow me. I shut my door and locked it tight. Pressing my back against it, I convinced myself it was just my imagination. But alone in the dark, I wished I could leave it behind. Then, it came again. The faint thudding on my ceiling. It was a reminder of the mystery that refused to be ignored. What, or who, was up there? I didn't know if I was safe, but deep down, I had a feeling I was about to find out. I spent the next day trying to distract myself. I went to work, but my mind wandered back to the whispers and shadows. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. At lunchtime, I found myself staring blankly at my design sketches, my pencil still. I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As I wandered through the nearby park, I glanced at people laughing and enjoying the sunny day. It seemed so normal, so far removed from the chaos in my mind. I tried to breathe in the fresh air, but the memory of rain-soaked whispers lingered. I needed to know more about the building. I walked into a nearby cafe, hoping for a distraction. Sipping my coffee, I overheard a couple at the next table discussing the neighborhood. They were chatting about urban legends associated with old buildings. My ears perked up. Maybe this was the sign I needed. Have you heard about the top floor? The woman asked. They say it's haunted. I couldn't resist. Excuse me, I butted in, feeling bold. What's that about? Both of them looked at me. The man laughed lightly. Oh, just stories. They say a family used to live in that apartment. They disappeared one night, and no one knows what happened to them. My stomach dropped. Disappeared? The woman nodded. Yep, no trace. Some say the sounds heard at night are them trying to reach out, still trapped there. Every word sent chills down my spine. I thanked them and left, my hands trembling around my coffee cup. The stories echoed in my mind. I rushed back to my apartment, my heart pounding harder with every step. As night fell, I knew I had to face it again. I decided to document everything in a journal. Maybe writing it out would help me understand. By 9 o'clock, I sat at my table with the notebook open. I wrote down the thuds, the whispers, everything I'd experienced. I didn't realize how fast the time had gone until I caught a glimpse of the clock. Midnight. That's when it started again. The thudding reverberated above me, stronger this time. I grabbed my pen, frozen in place. The whispers followed. "Help us!" Fear gripped me, but there was more urgency now. I couldn't ignore it. With a jolt, I decided to record the sounds. I turned on my phone's voice memo app and placed it on the table, letting it capture the chilling thuds and voices. Then everything changed. The thudding shifted. It escalated into a frantic banging, louder and more frantic than before. My heart raced. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed above me. I could feel the floor shake. Panic clawed at me, and my instinct screamed to run. But I couldn't leave, not without knowing. I bolted up from my chair and rushed to the door, but just as I reached for the handle, the lights flickered. I felt a presence, something cold and heavy wrapping around me. Everything went dark. When the light returned, my phone lay on the ground, face up. I glanced at the screen, my breath caught in my throat. The voice memo had recorded something. I didn't know what I would find, but I had to listen. What I discovered was about to change everything. I hesitated before pressing play. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but the pull of curiosity was too strong. I lowered the volume and hit the button. The recording played back with a crackle. At first there were muffled sounds, thuds like the ones I'd heard earlier. Then the whispers slipped through, soft but clear. "Help us." I shivered. The same plea echoed in my mind, but there was something more. It felt like a name. "Catherine?" I swore I heard it, but the static muddled the rest. My hands trembled as I listened intently, straining to catch every word. As the moments ticked by, I felt an increasing sense of dread. The banging escalated again, followed by a wailing sound that sent chills racing down my spine. I nearly dropped the phone. I couldn't pinpoint the source of the cries, but they seemed to claw at my very soul. "Help us, Catherine," echoing again and again. I shut off the recording, my heart hammering in my chest. Who was Catherine, and why were they calling her name? My mind spun with questions. I grabbed my notebook and scribbled the name down. I had to find out who she was. The thuds above me had quieted, replaced by an eerie silence. Was it over? I didn't know if I should feel relieved or more anxious. Even my apartment seemed to hold its breath. I glanced around the room. The faint light from my desk lamp felt like a weak shield against whatever had invaded my space. I decided to search online for anything regarding the building and the name. Maybe there would be more to uncover. I used my laptop to dive into local archives. Searches provided me clips of neighborhood lore, but nothing concrete about a person named Catherine. I expanded my search to include missing persons cases, but still, nothing. Frustration gnawed at me as the clock ticked into the small hours of the morning. Then I stumbled upon a forum post discussing the very building I lived in. It was dated years back but captured my attention. "I lived on the top floor years ago," it began. "Something terrible happened. I saw things, heard things. A girl named Catherine." I felt a rush of anger and confusion. I was not ready for this. I clicked on the link, desperate for answers, but it led to a dead page. I slammed my laptop shut, the sound echoing through the stillness. Why had I just done that? Just then, the sound of footsteps above me filled the void, slow and purposeful. My breath caught in my throat. I was certain. Someone was up there. I needed to check, but a cold dread washed over me. What if it was connected to Catherine? What if they were waiting for me? I stood at the edge of my room, staring at the ceiling, layers of fear and determination merging inside me. Then a thought hit me. What if they were trapped? What if I could help them? I took a deep breath and grabbed my phone. I had to face whatever was up there. The feeling of unease clouded my mind, but there was no turning back now. With reluctant determination, I made my way toward the door, heart pounding, nerves racing. As I reached for the handle, the lights flickered again. This time, however, the flickering didn't end. It turned into a full blackout. A sense of danger washed over me. Then I heard it clearly, a voice, not a whisper, but a loud, desperate scream. "Help me!" I froze. Who had just cried out? I stood there paralyzed. The scream echoed in my mind, reverberating against the walls of my apartment like a warning bell. I hadn't just heard it, I felt it. A plea, dripping with desperation. I fumbled in the darkness, searching for my phone. With a shaky hand, I turned on the flashlight. The beam sliced through the shadows, revealing the familiar shapes of my furniture. The air felt thick, charged with an electric tension. I held my breath, listening intently, hoping to catch another sound. Silence. I crept toward the stairs, the beam of light illuminating each step as I descended. The wooden stairs creaked underfoot, protesting my descent. My heart raced as I crested the final step. I felt a strange pull, as if something was drawing me toward the door that led to the hallway. I reached for the doorknob but hesitated. What if it was just a prank? What if I opened the door and found nothing but an empty corridor? But what if it wasn't? What if someone was truly in trouble? The thought sent chills down my spine. I took a breath and opened the door slowly. The sudden rush of cool air greeted me, and I stepped into the hallway. The dimness felt almost alive, wrapping around me like a shroud. I flicked the flashlight around, illuminating the faded wallpaper and the flickering overhead bulbs. "Hello?" I called, my voice sounding small against the backdrop of silence. No answer, just the hum of old pipes and the echo of my own heartbeat. I took a step forward, the light revealing that the hallway stretched out before me, empty and ominous. Then I saw it, movement at the end of the corridor. A shadow flickered just at the edge of my vision. My instinct told me to run back to my apartment, to lock the door and pretend none of this was happening. But a different part of me pressed forward, eager to uncover the truth behind the voice. I made my way deeper down the hall, the dim light illuminating flecks of dust dancing in the air. That's when I spotted her. A figure stood at the far end, blurred in the shadows, but undeniably there. My breath hitched as I called out again, "Are you okay?" She turned slightly, but I couldn't see her face. My heart raced as I noticed she seemed ethereal, almost transparent. "Help," she whispered, and the hair on the back of my neck prickled. It was Catherine. I stepped closer, drawn toward her. "Catherine?" I said, though the name felt haunted as it left my lips. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the hallway plunged into darkness. I heard a rush of wind, like breath leaving a body, and I felt cold fingers of fear grip my throat. I turned to flee, but another voice joined the first, clearer this time. "Leave her alone!" I stumbled backward into the wall, my pulse pounding in my ears. My flashlight flickered, casting a weak beam across the room, and for just a moment I saw her eyes, wide, terrified, pleading. And then there was silence again, heavy and oppressive. I was alone, but I knew I wasn't. I was being watched. I stood frozen, caught between the dark unknown ahead and the lingering whispers behind me. The fear transformed into a burning need to uncover what had happened to Catherine. What other secrets lay hidden in the shadows of this place? Just then, the lights came back on, illuminating the hallway, but she was gone. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I had to find out what happened next. What was waiting for me deep in this mystery? The bright lights cast long shadows, but they didn't soothe my fear. I wasn't sure if I felt relief or dread. In their glow, the hallway stretched unchanged, a monotonous tunnel of old wallpaper and silence. Catherine had vanished, leaving me with echoes of that haunting plea. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. I needed answers. I turned towards the stairwell, rushing back to my apartment. I grabbed my jacket and keys, putting on a brave face for whatever was next. I had to know if anyone else knew Catherine, if anyone could explain the ghostly encounter. I stepped into the empty night, the cool air brushing against my skin. My neighbor, Mrs. Platt, lived just a few doors down. She had lived in this building longer than I had, and if anyone knew about its secrets, it would be her. I knocked on her door, my hand trembling slightly. After a moment, the door opened. Mrs. Platt's white hair was tied back in a loose bun, her eyes peering at me with a mix of curiosity and concern. "What's the matter, dear? You look pale." I hesitated, unsure of how to explain. "I was just wondering if you'd seen Catherine. I heard her voice. I think she needs help." Mrs. Platt's expression shifted. Something dark flickered in her eyes. "Catherine? Not in years, child. She's been gone a long time." I felt my heart sink. "Gone? What do you mean?" "People thought she had left the building, but, well, I think it was more than that." She glanced over her shoulder as if fearing someone might overhear. "You shouldn't be asking questions about her. Why? What happened to her?" My voice was frantic. I needed to know. "She was troubled, had some sort of episode, I think. Then one night she just vanished. No one saw her leave. Some darker things were at play. You're digging in a place best left alone, child." The warning hung heavily in the air. I was just about to press her for more information when a loud crash echoed from above us. It jolted both of us. Mrs. Platt's eyes widened. "What was that?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. "Could be the wind, or the remnants of what happened to Catherine. I wouldn't go looking for her." But something inside me itched to explore the noise. "I have to know," I murmured, edging my way back toward the stairs. Mrs. Platt reached for me, desperation in her eyes. "You don't understand. You should just leave it alone. She's not at peace." But it was too late. I was already moving, driven by an impulse stronger than fear. I climbed the creaking steps, the familiar corridor of heavy silence wrapping around me like a second skin. I reached my floor and turned to find my door ajar. I had closed it firmly before. Adrenaline rushed through me, filling the gaps left by my lingering dread. What was waiting for me inside? As I stepped over the threshold, I noticed something on the floor, a small silver locket, glimmering under the dim light. I leaned down to pick it up, my mind racing. It felt cold in my palm, and as I opened it, I froze. Inside was a picture of Catherine, her eyes wide with fear, but there was something else. A note crumpled behind the photograph. I could hardly breathe as I pulled it out. "Help me," it read in shaky handwriting. "I'm not alone." A chill ran down my spine. Whatever was happening, it was something beyond my understanding, and now I had to dig deeper. Because now I wasn't just searching for Catherine. I was in the crosshairs of something much darker. The locket slipped from my fingers and clattered against the floor. I had to know what it all meant. I felt that familiar rush of fear, but it was mixed with an unsettling excitement. This note was a clue, a tether to whatever dark world Catherine had slipped into. I scanned my apartment, my eyes darting to the places where shadows sat thick, waiting. The air felt heavier, as if the walls were closing in. I moved toward the living room, heart racing, every creak of the floorboards amplified in the stillness. I had to figure out what was going on, and quickly. That urge to uncover the truth propelled me to my bookshelf. I started flipping through whatever I had. Books on local history, urban legends, anything that might offer insight into Catherine's disappearance. I felt each title weighing on me, pressing with questions. Did something happen here? Was this building even safe? Then I spotted an old book. It was a collection of local ghost stories. My hands trembled, but I pulled it out and flipped through the pages, searching for any familiar names. I found a chapter on the history of our building. It described strange occurrences, whispers in the night, doors opening and closing on their own, residents who seemed to fade into the walls. But then I froze. There was a photograph pinned to the page, an old black and white image of a woman. Her features were blurry and indistinct, yet I recognized her. It was Catherine. The caption read, "Catherine Lazarus, last seen in 1979. My breath hitched in my throat. Had she been spiriting in and out of this plane all these years? I turned the page and my heartbeat quickened. The next section detailed how residents would sometimes speak of shadows moving, pleading voices that echoed down the halls. "Help me," echoed in my mind, the exact words from the note. A pulse of desperation thrummed through me. Suddenly, a loud thud from above made me jump, my thoughts scattering. The noise felt deliberate, almost mocking. I glanced back at the door, half expecting someone to come through it, but there was nothing. Only that thin wall separating me from whatever lay beyond. Gathering my courage, I stepped toward the staircase. There were no more warnings to heed. I had come too far to turn back now. When I reached the top, the hallway loomed dark and empty. The dim light from the single bulb flickered ominously, casting shifting shadows. I approached the door to the apartment above mine. Was someone in there? I raised my fist, hesitating as I prepared to knock. But before I could, the door swung open, creaking on its hinges. My heartbeat surged. There stood a tall figure, a man with hollow cheeks and piercing eyes. It was impossible to tell his age. "Looking for someone?" he asked, his voice smooth yet chilling. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. My instinct screamed at me to run, to escape. Everything I'd uncovered, the locket, the note, the history of this place, it all culminated at this moment. Who was this man, and what did he know about Catherine? As I stood frozen, he took a step closer, a disturbing smile creeping across his face. "Come in. I think we have a lot to talk about." I hesitated, caught in the grip of his icy gaze, but something inside pushed me to step forward. I entered the dimly lit apartment, swallowing hard. The smell hit me first, a musty blend of dampness and decay. The man closed the door behind me with a soft click, and I felt a wave of unease wash over me. "Please, take a seat," he said, gesturing toward an old chair, the fabric threadbare and frayed. It felt wrong to sit, but my legs felt too weak to stand. I'm looking for Catherine," I stammered, trying to sound bold. His smile widened. "Catherine." He rolled the name around his mouth like it was candy, savoring the taste. "You're brave to seek her out. Most do not." "Do you know where she is?" I pressed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Yes," he replied, his tone clear and cold. "But it depends on the journey you're willing to take." "What do you mean?" I felt sweat trickle down my back. My instincts told me to leave. Fast. He stepped closer, his presence looming. "Catherine has been searching, yearning for someone to help her break through the barrier that keeps her trapped. She is not what she seems." My heart raced. "You mean she's dead?" "Not dead in the way you think." His eyes twinkled with something dark. "She exists in a space between realms, a place where shadows dance and voices call." I backed away slightly, trying to wrap my mind around his words. "How do you know all of this?" "There are stories, whispers that linger in the hallways. I have lived through them." He paused, the air thickening. "I've seen those who disappear, those who fade into the shadows, much like Catherine." "What happened to her?" My voice wavered. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. It gleamed in the low light, the locket. I felt the significance wash over me, like a wave of recognition. "Do you want to know how to find her?" he asked, holding it toward me. "Or do you fear what you might uncover?" The locket seemed to pulse in his hand, drawing me in like a magnet. I felt a mixture of hope and dread. My hands shook as I reached for it, but then I hesitated. "What's the cost?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He leaned closer, his voice a soft hiss. "Finding Catherine might cost you more than you are willing to pay. The shadows are greedy. Once you seek, they will seek you." Before I could reply, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. A cold breeze swept through, and I heard barely audible whispers echoing around me. Something shifted behind me, and my breath quickened. The door was suddenly ajar, a figure slipping through the crack. Someone was in the house. Now you must decide. His eyes glowed with an unsettling light as the shadows grew thicker. Will you help her, or will you run? Panic surged through me. I needed to make a choice, but I didn't even know what it would mean for me. The figure in the doorway was nothing but a blur. I couldn't see it clearly, but I could feel its presence looming over me like a dark cloud. My heart raced, pounding in my chest, as the shadows deepened around. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound brave. My voice echoed back, swallowed by the dimness. "Don't be foolish," the man said, his tone suddenly sharp. "They're drawn to your fear." He took a step back, away from me, and toward the growing darkness. "You should decide quickly." I didn't want to move. I wanted to bolt for the door, but the weight of the moment held me in place. I glanced at the locket in his hand, glinting like a beacon in the gloom. If Catherine was in trouble, could I really leave? Another movement caught my eye. The figure at the door shifted slightly, revealing something that gleamed in the faint light. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. Was it a knife? Help her, or turn away? The man leaned closer, his eyes reflecting the strip of light like two jagged shards. "But you know what you must do. The whispers are growing louder. They want to be heard." I felt a jolt of fear. The whispers, they swirled in my mind, growing in intensity. I had to break through, sense what they were saying. "What do I have to do? The locket will lead you to her, but you must accept its price." His smile widened, revealing rows of unnaturally sharp teeth. I mustered my courage, heart thumping violently. "What do you mean by price?" He laughed softly, the sound chilling. "There are always sacrifices. You'll have to confront the shadows. They will test you. The bond you share with Catherine will be your guide, if it doesn't tear you apart first." Before I could process his words, the figure at the door moved closer. My breath caught in my throat. I saw it now. A woman, pale and ethereal, with dark hair cascading around her shoulders. "Catherine?" I whispered involuntarily. "Yes," the figure said, voice trembling like wind through the trees. "Help me." Something in my chest pulled me forward, defying the darkness. I felt a rush of warmth, despite the chill settling in the room. But behind me, the man blocked the exit, his demeanor shifting from enigmatic to threatening. "You shouldn't trust her," he warned, his voice dropping to a low growl. "She's a siren in a sea of shadows." A fateful choice loomed. If I reached for Catherine, I might find answers. But if I looked away, I could escape this nightmare. The locket began to feel hot in my hand, the pulse quickening. I glanced back at Catherine, desperate in her plea. The man's sinister grin cut through the air like ice. Then everything went quiet. No whispers, no shadows, just a heavy silence pressing down. In that moment, my decision crystallized. "Catherine!" I shouted, my voice stronger now. I stepped forward, taking a deep breath as I reached for her, for whatever answer this dark hole might spit back. But as my fingers brushed against her cool skin, the room erupted in chaos. The lights flashed, blinding me. Warm breath turned icy. The man's laughter blended with the whispers, rising higher, threatening to consume me. And just like that, the shadows surged forward. The shadows crashed into me like a wave, cold and suffocating. I stumbled, but didn't let go of Catherine's hand, gripping it tightly. An electric jolt shot through me, connecting our fates in that instant. Then all fell eerily still again. The light pulsed, flickering like a candle about to go out. I blinked to clear my vision, searching for the man who had been blocking my escape. He was gone, yet the air felt heavy with his lingering menace. "Where are we?" I asked, scanning my surroundings. The dim light around us seemed to come from nowhere, casting strange shadows on the walls. The room felt larger now, the corners stretching away into darkness. "Trapped," Catherine whispered. Her voice was faint, like a distant echo. It twisted in my heart, reminding me of the threat lurking just beyond the edge of the light. "You shouldn't have come for me. He warned you." "I don't care," I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. "I won't leave you here." "That's just what he wants," she replied, her eyes tearing into mine. "He'll use you to drag me deeper into the shadows. You need to be careful." I couldn't help but feel a tug of fear at her words, but I pushed it aside. I couldn't care less about the warnings. I had to get her out of this nightmare. "Together, we can fight it. The locket. It's our only chance." Catherine shook her head slowly. "The locket doesn't just hold power. It feeds off fear and pain. Are you ready to face what you'll find?" With each word, the whispers began again, filling my head with fragments of thoughts like a broken melody. I turned to the locket, still warm in my palm. It was like it knew what lay ahead. "Tell me what to do," I said, resolve hardening within me. She hesitated, her attention drifting. "Listen to the whispers, but remember, not all will guide you. Some lead you astray. Follow your heart." Before I could ask how to do any of that, the shadows churned around us. They twisted like smoke, forming dark shapes that pulsed with intent. Faces appeared in the murk, some familiar, some grotesque, all filled with malice. "Help her," the echoes called, their voices overlapping and twisting into a cacophony. "Help her, or lose yourself." "Catherine!" I shouted, my voice barely holding against their taunts. "Stay close!" With renewed urgency, I gripped the locket fiercely and closed my eyes. The whispers enveloped me, a torrent of emotions surging through me. Fear, anger, longing. I had to break through, had to find a path. And then, through the chaos, I felt something clear and true, a warmth echoing the bond we shared. I clung to that feeling like a lifeline. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in that darkened room. Instead, I stood in a swirling mass of fog. But something was different now. I sensed a pulse beneath my feet, a heartbeat of the space. I looked around. That's when I saw it, a flicker of light cutting through the mist, leading deeper into the unknown. "Follow me, Catherine," I urged. "We have nothing to lose." As we moved toward the light, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. It didn't feel like we'd escaped. Whatever had been lurking in the darkness was still there, and it would not let us go easily. The light ahead shimmered like a distant star, guiding us through the swirling fog. I could feel Catherine's presence beside me, a mix of warmth and sorrow. "Whatever happens next," I said, "I won't leave you." Her grip tightened in response. As we pushed forward, the whispers shifted from taunting echoes to soft entreaties, confusing my senses. "Help her," floated through the air. But was it Catherine they wanted me to help, or something much darker? My mind churned with doubts, but I pressed on, the glow intensifying. Suddenly, shadows lunged from the edges, figures formed from my fears and insecurities. They morphed into distorted faces of those I had lost, human-shaped dreads that threatened to envelop us. "Help her," they shouted, as if their souls hung in the balance, tethered to both Catherine and me. "Close your eyes," I urged, drawing her further into the light ahead. We couldn't let them pull us back into darkness. The closer we got, the more the shadows recoiled, like moths flinching from a flame. "We're almost there," I shouted, my voice rising above the cacophony of voices. But before we could reach the light, a thicker shadow surged forward, blocking our path. It towered ominously, swirling with malevolence. "You think you can help her?" it growled, a voice dripping with disdain. "You're too late. She is mine." "No, I will not let you take her." I felt anger surge through me, An unfamiliar yet empowering heat. The locket in my hand pulsed, vibrating like a heartbeat. Without thinking, I raised it high above my head. "Catherine, we share this bond. You're not alone." The moment my words left my lips, the air shimmered, and a surge of energy rippled around us. The shadow recoiled as if stung by light, and the whispers transformed into a harmonious melody, fueling my determination. "Help her," they sang, and I felt the locket surge with power, pushing back against the darkness. "Together!" Catherine shouted, and the light from the locket illuminated our path like the sun breaking through a storm. The inky shadow shrank away, breaking apart under the brilliance. But just as freedom seemed within our grasp, I felt a cold breath linger against my neck. In an instant, the shadow surged forward again, wrapping around me like a tightening noose. "You can't escape," it hissed in my ear, the weight of despair pinning me down. I could feel Catherine slipping away, her hand growing cold in mine. "No!" I screamed, fighting against whatever had gripped me. Desperation knotted in my stomach. "We can do this." I willed every ounce of strength I had into my voice, pouring my belief in her into the locket. I remembered the stories, the warnings of sacrifices. But this was not the end. "Catherine, I believe in you." The locket glowed fiercely, sending a pulse through the darkness. The shadow shrieked, a sound that vibrated through the air like shattering glass. The fog cleared slightly, revealing a pathway illuminated beyond the chaos. "This way!" Catherine beckoned, her form growing more solid, her eyes brightening. With a final push, I broke through the grip of darkness, and we hurtled towards the light. As we crossed the threshold, everything exploded around us. The shadows imploded as the light swallowed them whole, and for a fleeting second, I felt an overwhelming sense of victory. But then, just as quickly, the brightness faded, and I stumbled, gasping for breath, blinking against the sudden brightness of my apartment. I was back, heart racing, disoriented. The echo of the whispers lingered in my mind, shadowed by questions. Where was Catherine? I frantically looked around, half expecting her to appear, but the room felt still, heavy, as if the weight of what had just happened hung within its walls. I sat on the floor, trembling and gasping, feeling the chill creep back in. The locket lay cold in my palm, its warmth gone. I had fought for something greater than darkness, but what did that mean for me? Had I truly freed Catherine, or had I brought darkness closer? I thought about the man, the one who had warned me. What did he want? Was he still here, lurking in the shadows? I could almost hear his voice whispering in the distance, a reminder that I was not yet free. Catherine's name echoed in my mind, and as much as I wanted to forget, a desire to understand remained. I would have to dig again, search for more answers beyond the veil. I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, deep down, the shadows would always await, drawing me back into their depths. I moved to the window, glancing into the dark alley below, the night still whispering its secrets. I wasn't done with this place, nor was it done with me. It had changed how I saw things, how I felt about the whispers in the dark. Deep down, I knew some questions would remain unanswered, hanging like thin filaments of fog. As I shut off my lights and settled into bed, I couldn't help but think about the lingering shadows, the pulse of the unknown. It had changed me, and the echoes of the past still tugged at the corners of my heart. I may have survived the night, but the darkness of the unknown and its questions still loomed, patiently waiting for me to step back into its embrace. The pursuit of truth was only just beginning.